I'll now introduce Lesson 44 in Ross. First of all, Section 44.1, Simple Noun Patterns. The survey shows the different patterns, but only occasionally can a value be assigned. One type of pattern is the sigilate nouns, and it takes words that began as monosyllables and adds helping vowels in order to break up the consonantal cluster. So you had Malk, which goes to Melik, and you had Sipper, which becomes Safer, and Kodsh becomes Kodesh. When suffixes are added, though, the original pattern comes back, as we've seen. So my king is Malki, or even when you add a feminine ending, it becomes Malka, queen, as opposed to Melik, king. And then in the plurals, these have the pattern that we've seen before with a Shavah, Kamatz, and a Hirik Yod, Mem. Then there's disyllable words with a tone-long vowel at the end. You have the Pakad pattern like Hakam, wise, which can also mean a wise man or a sage, and Davar, word. And then there's the Pakad pattern, as in Kaved, adjective heavy, but it could mean something that is heavy, and Yoreh, which means something afraid, or can mean one who is afraid as a noun. And then there's the Pakod pattern, the Katon, small, would be an example of the Pakod pattern. And then there's the Pekad pattern, Levav, with a Sere and a Kamatz. Then there are nouns that are really calactive participles. So Sofer is a scribe, but notice the OA pattern of the participle, meaning one who recounts or writes. And Oyev, enemy, again the OA pattern is the participle, one who is hostile, an enemy. And then Shofet, again the OA pattern is one who judges, hence a judge. Then there's the Pagod pattern with an A and an O, as in Kavod, honor or glory, Shalom, peace, Kadosh, as an adjective holy, but it can be used as a noun, a holy thing or a holy person. And then you have Chamotz, which is oppressing, but it could mean someone who is an oppressing person or thing. Then there's the Pagid pattern. Here you have the Asir, prisoner, Mashiach, anointed, with the furtive patah because of the guttural at the end, and then Navi, prophet. Mashiach is the word for Messiah, as you recall. And then you have the Pakud pattern, as in Arum, subtle. And then there's other patterns, the Pakod, with all these have Shabazz under the first consonant, and Pakid and Pakud, as in Eloah, God, usually seen in the plural Elohim. And then Hamor, a male donkey. And then Ariel, which is a fool. And then there's Gavul, which is a boundary. And then he lists a few other patterns that don't seem to have all the triconsonantal root in mind. Peh, which means mouth. Only see two consonants there. Brother. Again, you only see the two consonants there. And then you have Akrav, which has four consonant, which is unusual. It occurs in animal names and foreign names, so it may not be originally Semitic. And also the akavish, which is a spider. And then there's patterns with more than 4 consonants, as in Pasanterin, Psalterian or Psalterian, which is a musical instrument, a foreign loan word in Daniel. And then Ahash Dar Pan, which is a satrap, which is a Persian loan word. Psalterine is a loan word from Greek, and Ahash Dar Fan is a loan word from Persian. Well, anyway, that's a review of some of the noun patterns that are out there. And just as mostly a reminder, you've learned a lot of them one by one. Some of the ones in the end you have not seen before, I don't think. Let me move on to section 44.2, the nominal hendiadys. A hendiadys is when you join 2 words with and or vav in order to express a single but complex idea. And he gives you several examples here. It says, and the men of Sodom, and then it says, Ra'im ve'chataim. And that the men of Sodom were, you got to supply the verb, bad and sinners. But what it means is that they were really bad sinners. They were wicked sinners. Or in Genesis 3:16, where the promise is made that I will multiply, and then it has an infinitive absolute here. I will greatly multiply. I will surely multiply your pangs and your conception. Itzavotek, speaking to Eve, Eve's pangs, and your conceptions, but it means your painful conceptions, your pain in conception. Or you have Nahvanad, Tihiye Ba'aretz, a wanderer, Nah, and a vagabond, Vanad, you will be. Well, a wanderer and a vagabond go together to mean a ceaseless wanderer or a wandering vagabond, things like that. And you get this all over the place in the Hebrew Bible. In the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, God poured out fire and sulfur, which means burning sulfur, fire and brimstone in the King James. But it means burning sulfur. In the Psalms, it talks about your light and your truth guide me, which means something like your enlightening truth. And because Hebrew doesn't have as many adjectives, so sometimes give kind of adjectival ideas by using this hendiadys formulation. Another place is where it says in the law that God is gracious and compassionate. And again, that's a hendiadys, meaning graciously compassionate or compassionately gracious. It'll go either way. But anyway, you can translate these very often by making one of the nouns or adjectives more adverbial, a ceaseless wanderer, or the like. Section 44.3 will throw in a little mark that shows up in the Hebrew Bible from time to time called a pasek. The pasek, which has to do with a separating or a cutting off, is put between 2 words to draw attention to something peculiar in the text. And different ways that this could happen. Well, if a word is written twice, you may put the pasek in this case, Abraham. You put the pasek in there to tell you, oh, there's two of these, and that's okay. That's intended. It's not a scribal error. Or a pasek may be written when a word begins with the same letter as the last letter of the preceding word, although the general rule is that the pasek is not used in such cases, but sometimes it will be. And so here you have anashim, ma'at, men, a few men. A pasek may be written to avoid the close association of unworthy concepts with God, although this use is also rare. So here you have Vainaga Adonai et Paro. The Lord plagued Pharaoh, and apparently the pasek is put in there to separate Yahweh from wicked old Pharaoh. And then fourth and finally, the pasek after various accents, such as conjunctive munah accents, stands for a missing disjunctive accent. And so here you have a munah, asher, im ukol ish lim note, which, if one is able to number, and here you're having a little parenthetical statement, if one is able to number, and so you would really expect to have had some sort of disjunctive accent there. The Masoretes put in a conjunctive accent, the munah, and so they correct that by putting in a different sign, which gives you some disjunction. Well, that's the grammar at the beginning of lesson 44. And Lahiraot, we'll see you later.